I'm going to start the recording now. And Laura, and let's see who else that we have on here. So we have Lori and Sandy and Cheryl, and I think Linda is on audio. Welcome, and thank you for your interest, your continued partnership with SpinifeX, and allotting some time for us today to update you on what we think will be some valuable tools as you embark on your cloud migration. With me today is Chris Burke, who you know, and then also Stephen Gallo, who you know as well. So I'm the newest team member, and I've been on board now for about 5 months. Came on board after spending over 5.5 years at a systems integration partner, Rising HCM, formerly known as ASON. And so thrilled to join the SpinifexIT team. And my main responsibility is managing the SAP partnership that SpinifexIT has. So, I spend a lot of time, making sure that our solutions and our messaging and our value proposition and all the tools that we provide to the general marketplace or our customers align with SAP's products and strategies and everything. So, again, thrilled to be working with you. And I'm going to be assuming the account management responsibility as well. I live in Dallas, and Doug has asked me to kind of cover all points north and west of Texas, and so thrilled to be working with ULA going forward. So what we want to do in the next hour really is just share with you a little bit about what we're seeing in the cloud migration, in particular the Employee Central Payroll space, some best practices, and then we're going to turn it over to Steve and get right into an overview of several tools. Easy Migration is our Employee Central Cloud Migration solution, and we think it'll be very valuable to ULA and any customer that is preparing for moving from on-prem payroll to the cloud. Then we'll talk a little bit more about Easy Reporter and the SuccessFactors connector, which will be important to you, as you move to Employee Central Payroll as well. And then finish up with our Payroll Control Center Accelerator solution. And then we can, answer any questions, take your feedback, and talk about next steps. From what I understand, you're just kind of early in your project, and so we appreciate you giving us the time to actually share some of our solutions at this early stage. So, Steve, you can go to the next slide. So just as a refresher, I know you're familiar with Easy Reporter and Easy Clone. We continue to build out our solutions, and at kind of the 50,000 foot view, these are the business use cases that we are focused on and that we solve. We're going to talk today about accelerating cloud migrations, de-risking and reducing cost of an ECP implementation. We'll cover the connectivity that you'll want between Employee Central Payroll and Easy Reporter. And then we'll also introduce Payroll Control Center. It's a rapid deployment accelerator for the SAP Payroll Control Center, but there's a lot of added value that comes with Spinifex's add-on. You're familiar with secure data cloning and Easy Clone. And then we also provide payroll help desk inquiry resolution through our Easy Help Desk solution. We won't be covering that today, but well, I don't know, Stephen, you may touch on that just a little bit as part of Easy Migration. And then finally, we have our newest product, which is Strato Documents, and it is a document generation, creation, and distribution solution hosted in the cloud. That is really beneficial for all types of employee lifecycle documentation. So, if we don't cover some of these today and you have interest, then we're certainly happy to follow up. Stephen, thanks. You can go to the next slide. And I just kind of wanted to kick it off by, just sharing with you some of the best practices that, we're seeing in the marketplace for successful ECP cloud migrations. And these are really coming from SAP. They're coming also from our system integration and implementation partners, and then also clients as well. Kind of lessons learned. So the first is pretty obvious, but it's keep it simple. So to the extent that you can reuse your existing on-prem configuration and processes, it's recommended to do that. If it's not broke, don't fix it is kind of the message there. Clone your employee data, and then use pre-built reports to help accelerate and simplify the validation process. Then accelerate that whole migration. That's a big part of any cloud migration and ECP project. And so to the extent that you can speed that up, by again copying and cloning data and configuration into the new environment, that's recommended. And then also take advantage of the automation tools that are available for the data transfer, the testing, and the validation. All of that in the end should speed that time to value and return on the investment. And so we know that you'll be visiting with implementation partners, and many of those will take this same approach, and they'll talk about the SpinifeX tool set that can help accelerate your project. And then finally, mitigate risk. So a key element to that is partner experience matters. The resources that they will bring to the project really need to have both on-prem payroll as well as ECP cloud payroll subject matter expertise. And then certainly you'll want to review their methodologies and any tools that they would recommend to help simplify and accelerate and mitigate the risk of your project. So I'll pause there. Does that resonate with you, Laura and team? And nothing earth-shattering here, but it's really a good recommendation going forward.
Yep, agreed.
Excellent. Yeah. So, Stephen, at this point, I'll turn it over to you, and then Chris, as he's walking through Easy Migration, you might want to just find a good time to kind of explain our partner approach with Easy Migration, and then we can answer any questions as well. So, Stephen, over to you.
Sure, and Chris, remind me when I'm done talking about migration, I'll give you the 5 minutes to talk about from the partner side for 2 minutes. So hey everybody, Stephen Gallo here. Good to chat with you all again. Hope all is well during this fun time that we're having right now. What I'm going to do is take you through Easy Migration. And for people like y'all who already have our Easy Clone tool, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'll even walk you through some of the changes we've made with Easy Clone because we did leverage that technology. You've had our cloning solution to move people for quite some time. And essentially what we did over the last few months is we added the ability to include your system configuration in a copy as well. Why is that important? Right? Because a lot of our customers these days are moving to a cloud-based platform, whether it's Employee Central Payroll, some sort of BPO that's SAP-based, and reinventing the wheel is difficult. So what we decided to do was, based on countries, is find a way to take that configuration needed to process that country's payroll, in our case, the United States. I can't remember if you guys process in any other country, and move that into the new system. So this slide pretty much sums it all up. Essentially what we're going to do is try to create a baseline system in the new environment, in perhaps Employee Central Payroll, that works consistently with your old environment. So we move the configuration. We, of course, then clone the employee data. And then we make sure it works, right? We recalculate the payroll. And in doing that, we actually have the ability now to verify that that calculation actually jives with your old system. One of the newer functionalities of the reporting product that we built into this kind of migration process is to report across different systems. So now I can actually see live, is the new payroll that I calculated in this box still congruent with what I have in my production system, or QA, or whatever box you want to compare it with, right? So what we've really done with Easy Migration is we've enhanced a few of our solutions, such as Clone and Reporter, to make this process moving to the cloud a whole lot simpler. Now we're talking about, like, you guys were already live on SAP when you started, using our products. What we're talking about now is starting to use these products right from day one, right? So if you're looking at the implementation life cycle, earlier on in your process now, you can now validate that you have a payroll system that's correct. So usually you get to some sort of, unit testing or payroll parallel where you start, seeing if, hey, did we get this right? But now you can actually take that configuration and move it all on day one. You can move the people. I don't want to move every employee on day one, but move a bunch of people to make sure the payroll calcs on day one. And now you have that baseline system. And over the course of time in your project, you might make changes, right? You might do some consolidation. Let's consolidate this payroll area down to this. Let's consolidate these personal areas, right? You might make some business process improvements. Well, the nice part about it is you're doing those things. All this copy process to redo it is repeatable, right? Because now you have a tool set that says, hey, you know what? We need some updated config from production that we changed for this, but we don't want to change all the consolidation stuff we did in the new system. And EasyClone has the ability to do that. It'll only take what you want, what you haven't changed, et cetera, and bring it in. And then, of course, over the course of your implementation, you're using the reporting solution, part of Easy Migration, to validate all these, that the payroll is correct. And then issue analysis, you might be using Easy Help Desk, which I'm sure you've seen in the past. I'll show you kind of a flavor of it in Payroll Control Center today to actually analyze what went wrong with this employee's pay. So to Bob's, speech earlier, the whole idea is to make this process faster, right? De-risk it a little bit out there. Let me go with what I already got that works. Let me make sure that it works, and then keep doing that analysis over and over through the course of the implementation cycle. And then, of course, you'll have the products that you currently have, the Easy Clone for cloning master data and Easy Reporter moving forward to make that work. So the migration portion of it is really just the idea of the cloning. You already know that stuff, right? Let's go. So let's be clear. So I always try to be clear on what we're actually taking when we do this migration, because you're still going to need an implementation partner for certain things. What we're doing here is we are taking your payroll, right? Your on-premise current payroll config and master data if needed, and that is what we are moving. And we are moving that into the SAP-based Employee Central Payroll box, right? Your implementation partner still needs to load Employee Central. Do we have some reports that you can use to assist and load it? Yes, but most people are probably going to use Info Porter to do that because the synchronization config works after the fact. So you load your data into Employee Central. You have your master data loaded by EasyClone and configuration into Employee Central Payroll, and you're good to go. Because these are the things on the right that we're looking at, right? We're looking at the configuration for all those enterprise structural elements, your wage types, work schedules, the geo postings, et cetera, to go along with what you would need to recalculate payroll. Laura, does that make sense? At a minimum, we're moving the payroll config, Employee Central still on the implementation partner.
So that, and then I'm assuming at some point you reconcile between those two.
We do. We have some, what we're going to see today, you'll see the connector. We have a way to bring in the on-premise, the Employee Central payroll system data along with Employee Central and compare it.
Okay.
Cool. Due to time, I'm going to skip this because you get the whole idea. I'd rather just show it to you because you already have EasyClone out there. Let's do this. Let me pop over to a different box here. Or not. Come on, go away, PowerPoint. Let's do that. There we go. All right. Let's log into our box that I have Easy Migration set up because you guys will get it pretty quickly. Wow, too many systems these days. There we go. So what, /spin/EasyClone. Actually, I think we can do Easy Migration too now. No, didn't update the system yet, /EC. So we're still pretending we're in our on-prem box. In fact, I think the way I have this set up is we're pretending we're in our Employee Central Payroll box because we're going to pull the config over. And you know this tool, right? This is our cloning product that we're going into. It's used to clone employee master data, but we've added an additional step to it to allow it to pull the config, and I'll try to explain to you how that works to assist with your migration. There we go. So what you've always been doing with the cloning solution is you've been copying employee master data, right? The info types, payroll, et cetera, to recalculate payroll on a different system. But what we've done is we've added this new option here. We call it the client builder, which is essentially the core of what Easy Migration does, because this is going to allow us to move the specific config from one system to another. I actually have a variant already set up here, which I'm actually going to load because it'll have everything populated that I need to show you without having to click the buttons. So I cloned Mexico last week, so not that that's relevant here, but you'll get the idea. Let's do this, client builder, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy data from the current system to another system. So let's say I'm logged into production or whatever, I'm going to push this data into my other system. And you can do a poll if you want, like the one we did last week for another organization was we logged into their employee central payroll dev, and we pulled the configuration from their QA box into that dev environment. So we can still do the pull or the push, however you see fit. And then the way it works is it's done via transport. So very similar to what you have set up now to do clone employees, right? We create an RFC, remote connection between the two systems. So let's say your employee central dev and then whatever box you want to pull the configuration out of. And then we create some transports, right? So we go in here, create some transports. We're not going to do that on this call to hold the specific configuration out there. So that's step one. Step two, how we want to push the data, what do we want to do, where we want to get it from, and where we're going to store this information. Here's where the rubber meets the road. This tab is where we actually decide what we want to go after out there. Do we want to go after the payroll config? It's still loading here. Right, we have to do a couple different clones to make all this work. What are we going to bring over? Because some customers will bring over certain things and some others will not. For example, do you want the payroll config? What is this doing, right? If you're ever configured SAP, you're gone in there, there's a node in the implementation guide that says payroll USA. There's payroll Mexico. There's payroll Slovenia, because I had to do that the other day, right? So what we're saying here is let's go get the payroll config perhaps for the United States. For USA. So what this will do is it's going to go through that node into the IMG and find every table that's related to the payroll config and the payroll USA and load that into those transports out there. You can see though, there's certain things you may or may not want to bring over. Like at minimum, you're going to want the payroll config. You're probably going to want the personal administration config. You're probably going to want your payroll area config, which is like the calendar and things of that nature. But moving into a cloud environment, you might not want TinyVal, right? You might be going to Kronos or Workforce, or you're using something totally different, right? That configuration might be irrelevant in your future state out there. So you do get to pick and choose the things that you want, right? What's cool about it too is not only does it get the configuration, so we're going to say, do you want to copy the config? Absolutely, copy the payroll configuration. And maybe you just want the customer specific entries, so the things that you modified in the schema or the schemas and rules. I'm sorry, the config tables to bring it over, which usually works just fine if we just get your stuff. We do have to tell it which schemas we want, so we can get your full payroll schema over there. There are some limitations in Employee Central Payroll that your implementation partner will walk you through. There's certain function calls and things that you can't do. So after we bring the schema over, we do calculate the payroll and see if there's anything that has to get tweaked. Because you have a coded object we have to go get manually, or two, you're doing something that's not allowed in Employee Central Payroll. But pretty much these days, SAP kind of turns a blind eye, pretty much get it with anything you want. And we will get the features, right? So we'll go get all the features that are related to payroll for doing certain analysis, as it calculates. And of course, you would get the features if you were doing personal administration as well. I apologize, these screens are refreshing so slow. It's usually super fast. And we are on the right internet, so it's going to go get the features that we asked for out here. Usually we just get them all. I'm not sure why we had some of these deselected. And then you're good to go. You run it. The payroll config. So if we want to talk an end-to-end process, it takes probably 2 hours to do all of it, including the payroll area config. I'm not going to run it right now because it does take 10 minutes to run. But eventually what you would end up with is you kick this off in the foreground or the background. There's a whole log in here that tells you all the tables that got actually copied. And then that goes into your new environment. And at some point, you're eventually going to use the other option here in Easy Clone. Do not copy config, but actually copy master data. Let's take a handful of employees for the country that we copied over. Let's move them into the new system. And let's press go and see how the payroll starts working. So we did this last week for an organization in Chicago. We started finding errors on day one, right? And there were some things we had to fix, and we're still fixing a few of them. The partners are working on it, but it was a really rapid way to figure out how do we get Employee Central Payroll running as fast as possible. I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Nope, I think we're good. Thanks.
Cool. Chris, do you want to talk real fast about the partner engagement and how many we've got signed up so far?
Sure thing. Thanks, Steve. Hello, United Launch team. I'm so glad to be talking to you all again. Hope everyone's been doing well. I wanted to just jump in here, and what Steve's shown you and what Bob has already mentioned earlier about easy migration is that we work with a lot of different partners out in the ecosystem, and we've got a handful of these projects going right now. Actually, they're kind of, this has been a really well-received solution. We've got a lot of activity, a lot of excitement about how we can help them get their customers to the cloud faster and as you saw, in a lot easier fashion, and also giving you guys the ability to be confident that things are correct going forward. So with that, I know, Laura, you and I had spoke briefly a couple of weeks ago that you guys are looking for a partner, and we do work, like I said, with quite a few of them out on the market, and they all have access to these tools that you're seeing today. In addition, that if you do decide to move forward with a partner that, say, is not in a agreement or VAR relationship with SpinifeX, that's not a problem for us. We would still provide these tools for migration to that partner, whomever you selected. Being a customer of ours, that would be one of the things we would offer to you. So, that can either help or hinder your decision, I'm not sure. But just want to let you know that, we're willing to work with anybody to help you guys make this project a success.
I think I've seen you guys work with DXC Horizon, right?
Yes.
I thought that was one of them.
Yeah, we have done a project with DXC here recently. Actually, is one of the projects that we were just mentioning. So we do have quite a few in play with a bunch of different partners right now.
Okay.
So if you need anything, you certainly reach out at any time. I can give you kind of a story behind each if you'd like, if you need some assistance.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Steve?
All right. Thanks, Chris. What I wanted to show you now, we got two other things to cover in the next 30 minutes, and we will get through them. I want to talk to you about the integration we now have with Easy Reporter and Employee Central type related activities, as well as just a high-level overview of our payroll control center solution out there. Some of you, this Easy Reporter thing, I know I've shown it to Marty at a conference, but it's a little more relevant now, especially when you're going towards Employee Central. What we've done with Easy Reporters, we've added Employee Central as a data source. Why is that important? So those of you who go in Easy Reporter, you can get the payroll, the time, the master data, and bring it on. Well, now we have the ability to pull on Employee Central. So there's two good use cases for that. One, you're going to want Employee Central data in your report, right? Certain things are going to change. You're going to get departments and divisions and different master data elements that, in some cases, translate one-to-one to what's already in the Employee Central payroll system. But in some cases they don't. And I don't want to sit here and map that this personal area, sub area equals this division. I just want to go get the division out of Employee Central and bring it onto my report. That's use case one. Use case two is the one Laura already brought up to say, how do we compare what's between the two systems? And you will go, well, there's a replication monitor in Employee Central that's supposed to make sure everything is in sync. And you'd be correct. There is one, but it just tells you when things are wrong. It doesn't tell you if someone actually fixed them, right? So the idea behind the Easy Reporting solution, and I seem to do it at almost every customer I go to these days who ends up getting what we quote unquote call the connector, is building that replication report. So we usually build a report that compares the org objects that are important. We do a pay compare, all the pay scale levels, groups, all that sort of stuff that are important to calculate payroll. And in some cases, we'll even gone down to like the deduction level to make sure all the deductions are correct. So that's the idea behind what we call quote unquote the connector. The other portion of this comes into play in that you're moving to Employee Central environments. Let's see if that's fine. Laura, I forget, do you guys currently have ESS, MSS?
Do we currently have what?
Employee self-service, manager self-service?
We do.
Okay. So then you're familiar with the methodologies. You move, and some customers don't, right? What I hear when I talk to some people is like, oh my God, we've gone live on Employee Central and the wheels are off the bus. Because now employees have access to view their own data. Managers are making changes out there, things of that nature, depending on what they've locked down. And they're not even used to that whole, let's call it employee self-service, manager self-service mentality, right?
Yeah, so what you're showing here is Fiori. We have Fiori, we use it very limited, but that's not where ESS and MSS reside right now.
That's okay. because our Fiori implementation is completely separate from anything else. We wrote our own agnostic service. So if you've got Fiori turned on or not, it doesn't matter. We wrote a service strictly for reporting out there to leverage our stuff. So what happens is when you move to that Employee Central Payroll world, a lot of people are not necessarily logging in to the Employee Central Payroll box anymore. The payroll team probably is, but there might be other people who get reports or want to get reports, but they want to do it directly from an SuccessFactors based environment. And what we've done is there's ways to integrate now the reporting solution. And again, this is just the art of the possible. You don't have to turn this on and use it at all. But now you have a way to enable reporting from Employee Central in a way that's slightly more visually appealing than going into the back end out there. And so what I'm going to do is I'll show you what it looks like on the front end, and then we'll take a look at some of the back end and some of those audit reports that you mentioned. Because really, what it boils down to is this. I'm going to go into my SuccessFactors box. I don't know why PowerPoint's not behaving today. There we go. Let me go into my SuccessFactors systems here. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen, it's Linda. I got a question.
Hey,
for the Fiori, if you're going to go straight to SuccessFactors, I'm sorry, if you're going to go pull the thing, how are you going to manage the permissions to certain fields in certain areas in Employee Central Payroll or Employee Central?
So that's a good point. What we do is there is a named user that is connected. So we make the assumption that if you have the ability to pull in the employee in Employee Central, you can pull, at least look at them in Employee Central Payroll. Now, granted, these people, if they're pulling payroll data, they will have to have a permission in the Employee Central Payroll system that allows them to view the cluster.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So we had a bakery roll this out. They ran into the same problem, right? They're like, we put all these managers out there and gave them reports, but we never gave them the permission to actually pull the payroll data out of the ECP system. So they definitely had to adjust that to make it work. What's going on? All right, art of the possible. This is something you could do. Like, you guys know we use Report Call, but now people will be in SuccessFactors, right? They might be on their home screen and go, hey, I need to go pull, I'm an HR administrator, I need to go pull a wage type report. I'm a manager, I want to pull a report for my team out there based on data that's in the payroll system, right? What you can do is you can, and this is based on permissions too, because you can see the fact that there's a link here, is you can embed a link to Easy Reporter directly in SuccessFactors. Ooh, gosh. I think I cleared my cache before I started the session. All right. You guys know I test everything, and I ran this demo earlier today. There we go. Got it right the third time. So what this service is actually a service that we wrote, right? It lives in your Employee Central Payroll system. You just have to turn it on. And what it gives you the ability to do is set up reports for employees. So maybe they need to pull data for themselves. In this day and age of GDPR and other privacy things, employees have the right to see their data. Maybe a manager wants to pull his overtime for the month, right? This would look at the Employee Central structure and figure out who his direct reports are and get his, and you can run a report based on that. Granted, he has to have permissions to pull that payroll data in the system, or it might just be a payroll administrator, right, that wants to run some of their biweekly reports, monthly reports, and they want to do it through a UI like this as opposed to going into SAP GUI. Because we can break these folders out however you see fit. You can permission these folders based on roles inside of Easy Reporter, similar to probably what you're doing today. And then, of course, subfolders of reports out here. So let's just do post-exit reporting, and we'll keep it simple. Right, so really what it boils down to is you can take your existing reports, because you already have them, and decide if these are things you want to expose out to the world. Maybe you keep them directly, holding them tight into the payroll department, or maybe you say, hey, you know what, let's let the administrators out there in the world pull payroll results. So we're going to run for the payroll area US. And it's very similar, right, to what you've seen in Easy Reporter. You pick your dates you want to run for, you pick your people, maybe there's some additional selections that you want to run, and then you have the ability to run this directly from the web. So I didn't have to go into SAP GUI. It's all deployed out here. This didn't single sign me in, obviously, because we don't have that turned on, but if you did have single sign on, it would single sign them in. And then you execute your reports, and you're now doing it from the web as opposed to inside of SAP GUI. All right, so this is just a wage type based report. I probably should have ran the register. Let me run the register, sorry. This one looks a little better. It's not rolled up. This one automatically runs. So that's another thing. These reports you can set up to automatically run for like the current period. And you get a nice little grid of stuff out here. Where's the pay? There it is, right? Gross deductions, federal taxes. And then you do, of course, have the ability to download this, where is it, to Excel if you see fit. So it's like Easy Reporter Lite. You can't really build anything out here, but if you want to execute specific business processes or reports, you can do it now from SuccessFactors. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sounds good, Stephen.
I guess the last thing we'll talk about reporting-wise before we talk about Employee Central. Let's see if I got logged out of the system. /n/screen/er. That I did. Our timeout is now like 10 minutes. It's crazy. Yeah, I did. What you get now logging in /bin/er. There you go. Let's take a look at this report here. So this will answer your question that Laura asked earlier. This is my SAP to EC to Employee Central data validation. So what you end up with now, I'll run it in a second for you guys, ladies. We made it pretty simple, right? Employee Central can actually be somewhat of a complicated thing at moments, but we've tried to simplify at least the reporting of it the same way that you would report anything else in your current system. Because what you're going to find out is when you install our connector and we set it up, you now have a new data source folder down here that says SuccessFactors Employee Central. And it's going to have all those fun elements in it that you want to report on that some make it over, again, one-to-one to Employee Central payroll, but not everything does, right? Things like your business unit, department, division, the location, some of those things might not be a one-to-one mapping. But more importantly, you might want to compare things too, like what's the pay scale area in SuccessFactors versus what's the pay scale area on Info Type 8 in SAP. That's essentially what this report does. I'll run it for you because it'll make sense. Is what we've done is we've pulled on elements from the SAP system itself, right? Info Type 2, for example, right? First name, and this is a simple one just for the sake of demonstration. And we've even pulled on fields from Employee Central first name. And that makes sense to map, but I'll explain the rest of this in a second. Let's run it because it's easier to understand when we actually execute the report. Got it in full screen here, so that's good. I've only got a few people in here just to prove a point, but you'll get it when it pops up. So the idea of comparing data between the two systems is to ensure your payroll is always correct, right? Like, make sure everything's in sync. And if you're just comparing something like a first name and a first name, that's easy, right? Does Terrence match Terrence? Yes. Does Jonathan match Felix? No, right? Obviously, we would only show records where there was a mismatch. We show both in this for the sake of demonstration. But that's a one-to-one easy type of mapping. Then there are things that are not so simple, right? The status in SAP we know is 0, 1, 2, 3, 3 being active. That status code might be something completely different in SuccessFactors, and in fact, it's different based on pretty much everybody's implementation out there. Right, so the status code for active is 4595 in this system, right? I need to translate this into something that's meaningful in my payroll system. Because once I translate it, this 4595, into something that's meaningful, I can then compare it and see if they match, right? So you might have to build some logic into your report to say, this personal area and this sub area concatenated together really make up this division, and that's what I need to compare to the division in Employee Central. So there's sometimes a little bit of work to set these things up, but once you get them set up, you can just sit there and run it every night, wake up in the morning, see what didn't match, check your replication monitor, fix what you need to fix. And now you have an easier ongoing way to make sure everything is still in line with what's in the payroll system versus what's in Employee Central. Does that make sense to everyone?
So this might be a stupid, naive question because we haven't gone there yet. Okay, so I get this for like us converting data over, but like when we hire people going forward, is Employee Central going to have a different codes than Employee Central payroll that will always have to be running these matches on?
It depends on how you build it. So the short answer is it doesn't have to. You can use the same action reason codes that you use in your current system. but in some cases you will have additional things because Employee Central might have additional capabilities that aren't even available in the payroll system, and they not so much from a pay standpoint, they're more from an HR standpoint. I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head.
Okay, so there's things that Employee Central can do that Employee Central Payroll can't do.
Yeah, so there's like different ways leaves are processed. You know, leave in SAP, standard SAP is terrible, right? Reporting on that, usually that's a custom field and all that. There's usually a field directly in Employee Central that says this person's status, which you're gonna have to always map back to something that you have in the payroll system. I will say this, the one I did, God, it's probably almost a year ago now, they were almost like for like on everything. Like the pay scale levels and groups were exactly the same. Their location with their org unit exactly the same. Division was like a personal area was exactly the same, right? Their mapping was pretty straightforward, but I have talked to customers who, I haven't really done one that's been very hard, but I have talked to customers who say nothing is lining up and we really need to build a system to match it out.
So do you think then, I mean, that we probably need to be in lockstep with them when they're setting up Employee Central?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So your best bet is like, hey, tell them we want our config. We don't have a problem with our action reason codes. Keep them the same. They'll become event reasons in success factors. If you like your pay scale group structure and it's possible to build, a lot of times customers have customizations built around pay scale groups and levels that you can't do in Employee Central because you have done some crazy, code in SAP. But if I were you, what works for you, make them repeat that. What doesn't work for you, take their advice and maybe improve it,
Right. That's why you want to go live with Employee Central, or is not, that we wouldn't have to revisit configuration because there's mismatches.
So on the, and I'm just catching up to speed here, so bear with me. On the configuration transfer back there, the tool, is there areas to say, I mean, to get down into the detail on, we want to transfer all of these codes except these ones? I mean, are there things that we want to drop and clean up that we don't want to transfer? We'd have the ability to drill down to that kind of detail to say, don't transfer these? Or does it just go over like it looks right now? So say like something like, I'm assuming things like wage types, right? Say we've got 250 wage types out there and we only want 100 of them to transfer. Is there a way to distinguish, or do we just get all of them?
There is. So there's a couple different ways, at least in a future version of our solution, that you can do it. So what we're doing, version 1, we just take the config and move it, right? We're trying to make sure this all works, and it seems to be working pretty good. Version 2 is the consolidation factor of it, right? So you're going to have wage types that still mean something, right? Let's say you have 2 base pay wage types and they do almost the same thing, and you're like, we only need one of these. You'll have a way to map in the migration solution to say, hey, make these 2 wage types, 1001 and 1002, make them all 1001 in the new system, or whatever code Employee Central Payroll wants. So you can, yes, do that translation and consolidation on the fly in the migration solution. At this point, though, if you went live tomorrow with our solution, your implementator would just have to make those configuration changes by hand in the new box.
Okay. I mean, because we've got wage types that we set up, when we did this 10, 12 years ago, that never even got used.
Yeah. You want to just ditch them,
Right. Because there's just clutter out there now.
Yep. So one, we're going to say, and I don't know, I have to check if it's at the field level. I know we got it at the table level to say, let's start excluding these tables because people have some functionality in SAP that it's not even valid in Employee Central Payroll. So they're like, can we just not bring these tables? So I know we have that. I'll find out at the wage type level for you.
Okay.
Cool. Good question. Got a little bit of time here. Have you guys seen Payroll Control Center? It's been around a while. Did you guys ever look at it back in the day?
Only probably Linda has seen it.
So what Payroll Control Center allows you to do is process your payroll in a visual way for 2 purposes. 1, to see which step in payroll you're currently at, the bank transfer, calculation, monitoring, posting. And 2, it allows you to visually correct and see issues that are occurring during your payroll, which you probably have some easy reports that you use to audit that. How many people have no net? How many people are terminated with leave, right? Things of that nature. You can actually embed that now in Payroll Control Center and look at it through a UI. And I'll take you through our payroll control center in a second, but our payroll control center is SAP's payroll control center. There's no different about it. This causes a lot of confusion. Maybe we say it wrong, but what SAP delivers is payroll control center. And they deliver a rapid deployment solution to enable it. That gives you all the different steps pre-set up, process payroll, do posting. Obviously, you have to change some variants and things of that nature, but they give you a rapid deployment solution. And that rapid deployment solution also has policies. Find me people with no net. Find me people who are, again, terminated with pay, or terminated with leave, right? They have those policies built in. What we've done is we've turned Easy Reporter into an RDS policy engine as well. And it looks, feels, smells, and tastes just like Payroll Control Center. You wouldn't even know you're using the Easy Reporter solution. But what's nice about it is if you have to make those changes to the standard RDS, like, okay, in Denver, we want to find people who are salaried that make over $6,000 a pay period. We got to go look at them. And it's not bonus time, right? But in New Jersey, we want to find out people who make over $3,000 and work in this department. Those tweaks to those policies, they're all code, or not all of them. There's some configuration to it in the standard SAP RDS. In other words, it takes a significant amount of time to make and test those changes because you got to go through the whole development lifecycle process. What we've done is we've built the same policies SAP has into Easy Reporter. So they're, one, easy to deploy, just like the regular RDS. But two, when you have to make changes, you're not changing code and config, you're just changing a report. Because that report is what's driving finding everybody who's greater than 5,000 and hourly working in New Jersey, right? So we kind of made it a little simpler. In addition, if you have any custom policies that you have, you can build them in Easy Reporter. That's one, you don't have to write code to do it. And two, you probably already have some policies or at least some reports you're using to audit your payroll. Because you have Easy Reporter, you can now easily bring that over into Employee Central Payroll. You can just import the report and we can convert it into a policy that would work with Payroll Control Center should you want to go that route out there. Because what we deliver is we deliver the same policies that SAP delivers and they're RDS, but they're Easy Reports. So it's super flexible to get them up and running and reconfigured because it's literally like 85% less time. When we talk with our implementation partners, and you'll talk to probably some of them as well, the quote that I'm going to give you is going to be weeks, and the quote that they're going to give you to do the standard SAP is going to be months if you need to make any configuration changes. You still go through the same process with Payroll Control Center, right? You blueprint the policies you want to put out there, you decide what you want to change, and then you re-implement. And if you're doing it through the standard IMG, if you would, it's definitely going to take you a little bit longer than using Easy Reporter out there. What we've also built into the product is drill down capabilities. So you can actually execute reports on this first person's policy. And I'll show you this in a second so you get it, to determine what actually went wrong. So the thing about Payroll Control Center is it's great, even out of the box, at telling you this person had retroactivity over $4,000 this pay period. Cool. Now tell me why. Tell me why they had it, right? What wage types caused it? What were the periods? What master data changed to do that? That's where the magic dust is, if you would, right? It's cool that you told me there's a problem. Now I get to figure out why. What we can do is we can embed reports, and we obviously already have a pre-delivered set of them in our solution to execute against this employee to see exactly what they went wrong. And because of the time, I'm going to pop out of here for a second. You guys will understand this when you see it. So much easier just to show it. What we've done in Easy Reporter is we now deliver a set of reports for Payroll Control Center that are the same exact policies that SAP offers in their RDS. High net pay, gross pay over amount, retro pay over amount, right? All these different policies that are out there. There's master data ones as well. And what I'm saying is if you want to change this policy, because this is going to show up in Payroll Control Center in a minute when I take you in there, if you want to change this policy to say, I want retro pay over a certain amount, you're not going into the IMG, you're not doing transports, you're changing it right here. Say, instead of saying $1,000, let's say $5,000. I'm changing the report and saving the variant, right? I just literally saved myself hours of transport work and rerunning Payroll Control Center to change this. Because not only that, I can change the value here and I can test it right here because I can just run the report and see if the population that I expect to come out comes out. I don't have to take the code, I'll load it in the Payroll Control Center, reprocess the payroll so the policy pops, and then see the results that came out of it. I can definitely just run it right here and guesstimate if the policy correction that I made is correct. And this looks like an easy report, because it is. But when it's in Payroll Control Center, it doesn't look like this, right? It looks like Payroll Control Center. Let me show you. Let's go here. This is my, why this thing keeps doing this today? Yeah. Oops, organizer. Okay, let me close this out. Sorry. Let's try another window here. PCC, actually it's under your systems, DM1. Oh, that's good. This is my Payroll Control Center. It looks slightly different than the one that SAP or your partner will demo you, because this is not out of Employee Central Payroll, but it's the same process out there. We have a process out there that's run in simulation mode to say, all right, for the US payroll, I believe it's July of 2017, calculate it, and then show me what has occurred within this period. Because one of the nice things about when you go to Employee Central Payroll, you can decluster your payroll and you can test it with actual live data, right? You can run your payroll, store the results, and not actually have the final version of it, right? You can simulate this thing to your heart's content and report on it, unlike you can now. Because what I've done is I've run this monthly simulation for July of 2017, and we can see we've definitely had some errors of items that occurred. And one of those errors that we looked at, we saw it in Easy Reporter, was that retro pay over amount, right? So we have a threshold out there, I think, of $1,000 to say if someone retros over 1,000, let's show them, right? And that's why it's important to, when we go back and look at this, right, there's only one person here because this is a demo system. When you deploy a standard SAP policy, you might run it and 5,000 people will pop up. And you're like, this policy is probably not valid for my company because it's a standard thing that occurs. Like, you're going to want to go tweak them so you're getting the results that for you, you need to correct, right? SAP standard $1,000 for over net, probably not going to cut it, right? You're going to need different thresholds in there depending on what part of the organization people are working in, should you decide to implement that policy. So you try to, that's the idea of like retesting it. You're trying to run the population to make sure we're getting the people that really truly are a problem in our payroll control center. And you can see we are seeing someone who had it, right? We had that, we saw that report. That report that I showed you earlier is what caused this, right? There's some linkage in here where we say this Easy Report is now a policy, and it does all this fun stuff for us automatically out there. And then you're going to go figure out what's wrong with this guy. That's great that you're telling me he's got $6,166 worth of retro, but the simple answer to the fact is, why did he have that retro? And in this case, because it does take a while in our system, I don't know what they did over the weekend. I was on vacation last week, so of course everything breaks while I'm on vacation. But I did take some screenshots earlier to show you what it would actually look like out there, because it will run. It just takes a while. Let me go in here. What you would end up doing is you'd say, all right, you got $6,000 in retro. That's cool. Why? What we do in our solution, you can see there's Braden again and his $6,000. We allow you to bring up a report to say, let's go find that. So we can drill in by his gross pay. Oh, we see the salary wage type has retro, and here's that $6,166. This is a very simplified example for the purpose of demonstration, but you can imagine it's a needle in the haystack, right? Why did somebody add retro? What caused this person to be over a certain amount, right? You can drill in here and it will show you all the wage types that occurred, current retro, however you want to see it. And of course, we can build custom ways, reports to do it. Now I can see here, well, hey, you know what? The retro was caused by his salary wage type. It went back, we said we're doing period 7. It went back 2 periods to period 5, and we can see the ins and the outs. And us being payroll people, we can probably look at this and go, oh, his info type 8 probably changed. But again, needle in a haystack, right? Could have been anything in Employee Central Payroll that caused any sort of wage type to change. You can run the audit log also directly from this view, and in fact see that, hey, you know what, there was a master data change. It was on info type 8, right? See that down here. And it did change his annual salary, went from $125,000 to $162,000, which explains that new pay of $13,500 versus the $1046. And if you added this up over the 2 periods, you would get your $6,000 out there. So what I'm trying to tell you is, quite simply, when you go and you're talking to a partner and you want to, in there, if you guys decide to do Payroll Control Center, look at our policy engine first. It's a lot faster to put in. It's a lot easier to change in the future should you have problems. And we give you an added bonus that SAP doesn't do, in that we allow you to have this drill capability into the person's problem and actually see right from the screen inside Payroll Control Center without having gone to payroll system, running recon and all that sort of stuff to see exactly what happened to this employee. So you can resolve this issue, set the solution, and move on. With that, I will stop talking because we are pretty much out of time for today.
So does that solution then work instead of, you don't need Payroll Control Center, or it has to sit on top of Payroll Control Center?
It sits on top of it. So what I tell people is this: when you go to you still want, so they're going to install Payroll Control Center, right? That's going to come with your Employee Central Payroll package anyway. That'll be turned on. You want them to install the SAP RDS. The RDS has some cool stuff in it. It has all the processes set up, like all the steps that you don't have to build by hand, like posting and things of that nature. Obviously, you have to change variants. And then you install the integration of Easy Reporter, and we're a layer on top of that, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. That was a good question.
Good, Steve. Thank you. Yeah. So that, I mean, we have a few minutes to answer any additional questions that you may have. And
anybody else besides me?
And Laura, there may be questions that come up later. That's fine. I'll share the recording with you. What can we do to support you, in this process? Chris mentioned, initially that, we wanted to share the easy migration tools. We also wanted to introduce, the Employee Central connector, which, we highly recommend, and you'll want that once, you do move over to ECP. And then we do think that, the Payroll Control Center accelerator that we provide is, provides a lot of value to the standard PCC that you're going to be getting anyway. So those are, all recommendations that, we can continue to discuss. But in terms of your project, and going forward, selecting, partners, implementation partners, we're here to help and answer questions and provide support in any way. So is there anything that you can think of that you would like for us to do?
The whole process is just so huge right now. So that was, this was really good to definitely have the awareness that was out there, because like I said, we had heard it from the one partner, the one implementation partner that was out there. But it's really good to see how that to see the awareness, to see like, wow, you can just do these copy things and expedite things, it looks like, substantially.
Sure. Yeah. And those are, that you can phrase the, the question to your, your implementation partners any way you want, but, you can just ask them, hey, how have they approached this in the past? What kind of acceleration tools are they using? And then you'll find out pretty quickly, if they, are incorporating, easy migration. And like Chris said, if you find a partner that you want to work with that, is not aware of it or is not mentioning it, we're happy to engage directly with them and bring that awareness to them. But I think you'll find that probably the leading ECP partners out there are already partners with SpinifeX and well aware.
Okay. That's good to know.
Okay, good. Well,
Linda, do you have anything else, Linda? Linda, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything else. Thanks, Stephen and Chris and Bob.
You bet.
Yeah, our pleasure. You're welcome. So, Steve, thank you, and Laura and your team, thank you for, again, carving out time. We hope that it was valuable to you, and we'll keep the lines of communication open. I'll package up this recording and make it available through our Google Drive. You'll have a link, you can access it. And then in the meantime, as you work through, your project and questions come up, related to SpinifeX, to our tools, to, Payroll Control Center, let us know. Reach out to me.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Thank
bye.
you.